Last month, WTA team says at least 80%, if not more, of the requests in this tournament are about Alex Eala.
80%.
Alex Eala has just done it again.
Being a fighter, I think everybody at this level is a fighter.
In the middle of the night Philippine time on a hard court in Washington, D.C., she took down the defending champion of the Mubadala D.C. Open and walked off the court as the first Filipina in history to reach the quarterfinals of this tournament.
Alex, she's a tough opponent to play. She's having a tremendous year.
And this is not a one-off. This is the same Alex Eala, who in the last 5 months has beaten Jasmine Paolini, Coco Gauff, Elena Rybakina, Elena Svitolina, Iga Swiatek, Qin Wenjing, and now Leylah Fernandez. 7 top-tier names, 3 surfaces, 1 player. She is 21 years old. She is ranked number 28 in the world, the highest any Filipino has ever been in the history of professional tennis. And she got there by beating the players everyone else is afraid of. Last night, she did it again, down against a former U.S. Open finalist on the biggest hard court of her North American swing, with the entire Filipino community of Washington, D.C. in the stands screaming for her. She won 6-2, 7-6. She is in the quarterfinal, and she is not done. So the question tonight is simple. Can this version of Alex Eala actually win this quarterfinal? Can she keep going? And what does this current run tell us about who she becomes at the U.S. Open a month from now? Because if you have not been paying close attention to what she has done in the last 30 days, you are about to see something nobody saw coming. Here is the context. Alex Eala arrived in Washington ranked number 28, a career high she reached on July 13th after her run at Wimbledon. 14 weeks earlier in April, Leylah Fernandez had beaten her in Stuttgart 6-1, 6-4 in barely over an hour. That match was not close. This one was supposed to be the sequel, and there is one more piece of context that most people watching the highlight reel will miss entirely. According to DC Open chairman Mark Ein, speaking on the record to the Washington Times, at least 80% of the ticket requests for this tournament over the last month were about one player.
Last month, WTA team says at least 80%, if not more, of the requests in this tournament are about Alex Eala.
Not Venus Williams, not Naomi Osaka, not the Olympic gold medalist Zheng Qinwen, Alex Eala. So let's talk about the tension in this match because it was real. Fernandez is not a name you dismiss. She was a U.S. Open finalist at 19. She is the defending champion here, ranked 7th, and she came into Washington on her own reset year with something to prove. She is also, and this matters, Filipina-Canadian herself, left-handed, similar age, similar baseline game. In the pre-tournament media day, she said the right things. She talked about the memories, the crowd, the fight from last year. She did not talk down to Eala. She did not underestimate the moment. She was ready. And for stretches of the second set, she looked like the same player who had blown Eala off the court in Stuttgart. She built a 5-1 lead. She had 3 service breaks moving in her direction. She had the crowd starting to wonder, and this is the tension that this match kept threatening to become. Not a coronation, but a recurrence. The same opponent, the same problem, the same ending, because there is a version of Alex Eala's career where this match becomes a footnote, where she plays a clean first set, gets punched in the mouth in the second, folds in a decider, and we all move on to whatever she does at the U.S. Open. That version was on the table until the 9th game of the second set. It was on the table until she was serving to stay in it at 1-5. And the entire story of what she has become in 2026 is the story of what happened next. Cluster 1, the match itself. The scoreline reads 6-2, 7-6 with a 7-1 tiebreak, and that scoreline is a lie. It is a lie because it does not tell you that in the opening set, Eala committed exactly 4 unforced errors to Fernandez's 14. According to the ESPN play-by-play, that is not a hot streak. That is championship caliber margin. Eala broke Fernandez in the second game to lead 2-love, held to 3-love, saved a break point in Game 5, and closed the opener by breaking Fernandez a second time. Clean, quiet, disciplined tennis. And then the second set arrived and the story changed. Fernandez broke Eala for the first time in Game 3 to lead 2-1. She backed it up, she broke again in Game 5. She held for 5-1. Every previous critique of Alex Eala, the serve under pressure, the closing out problem, the physical durability question in long matches, every one of those. Doubts was writing the ending in real time, and that is when the match turned. Eala held. She broke Fernandez. She held again. Suddenly, it was 5-4. Fernandez, serving for the set at 5-4, got broken. 5-5. Fernandez broke back to force a tiebreak. And in that tiebreak, Eala did not just win, she detonated 7 points to 1, 3-love lead. She never surrendered. From 1-5 down to 7-6 in the space of 13 games. 6 of the last 7 games belonged to her. This is the sequence that changes how the tennis world talks about her. Because whatever Alex Eala was in April when Fernandez beat her in Stuttgart in an hour, she is no longer that player. Cluster 2, the pattern behind the match. Now zoom out. If this were the only top 10 scalp on her 2026 ledger, you could call it a lucky night, a home crowd surge, a Fernandez off day. It is not the only one. In February, in Dubai, she beat Jasmine Paolini, then ranked in the top 10. In March at Indian Wells, she beat Coco Gauff, then ranked number 4 in the world. In June in Berlin, she beat Elena Rybakina, ranked number 2. In the same tournament, in the same week, she beat Elena Svitolina to reach her first WTA 500 semifinal. Then, at Wimbledon in July, she beat Iga Swiatek in the third round on grass, a surface most analysts said would take her longer to figure out than clay. 2 days before the Fernandez match in Washington, she opened her tournament by beating Qinwen Zheng, the Olympic gold medalist, in 3 sets. Her career top 10 record now sits at 7 wins and 4 losses. 7. That is not a fluke rate. That is a top 15 players headline reel, and she has compiled it in 5 months across clay, grass, and hard court. Take a breath here for a second, because it is easy to just list names and move on. Sit with what that list actually means. Every single player on it has either won a Grand Slam, made a Grand Slam final, won an Olympic gold, or held a top 2 ranking. That is the actual company Alex Eala has been beating in 2026, not talented peers, not up-and-comers, the names at the very top of the sport. Cluster 3, the business behind the pattern, and this is the piece almost nobody outside the Washington Times report has picked up on. Mark Ein, the chairman of the DC Open, did not stumble into having Alex Eala in his draw. He recruited her. His words, quoted in the Washington Times on July 28th, "Over the last month, the ticketing team says at least 80%, if not more, of the requests in this tournament are about when is Alex Eala playing. Honestly, I think it's more, and they just didn't want to say it was more, but they're like virtually all. It's not an exaggeration." That is a tournament chairman telling a newspaper reporter on the record that the number 28 player in the world is outselling a draw containing Venus Williams, Naomi Osaka, Jessica Pegula, Elena Rybakina, Elena Svitolina, and the reigning Olympic gold medalist. This is where what nobody saw stops being a phrase and becomes a documented fact. The tennis conversation is still catching up to what the ticketing data already knows, which brings us to the authority moment of this entire story, because Ein said one more thing that deserves to sit on its own. When you look at the amazing players here and how many great stars there are, it says something about Alex's following. Obviously, she's been an icon, become an icon in the Philippines, but worldwide. Read that quote carefully. This is not a fan on Instagram. This is not a Filipino sports column. This is the chairman of a WTA 500 tournament, a longtime tennis business operator, using the word icon and pairing it with the word worldwide. He has direct financial and reputational skin in that assessment. If he is wrong, his tournament suffers next year. He is not wrong. The Washington Times reporter who covered the match wrote that not since the Beatles played the Washington Coliseum in 1964 Had the city seen a sensation quite like this? His framing, not ours, but the fact that a mainstream American sports desk reached for that comparison tells you something about the temperature in that arena. Filipino-American families from Maryland and Virginia and the district showed up with flags. They showed up with signs. They screamed her name for 2.5 hours in her opening round comeback against Jing, and they came back and did it again for Fernandez. This is not diaspora sentiment being generous to one of their own. This is a market that Marquine documented in ticket request data, and it is a market that every tournament director on the WTA calendar is now going to have to account for. So what room is she actually in now? The literal answer is the DC Open quarterfinal, where at the time of this recording, she awaits the winner of the round of 16 match between number 2 seed Elina Svitolina and Polina Kudermetova. If it is Svitolina, it is a rematch of the Berlin quarterfinal from June, where Eala won 6-3, 6-4 on grass. But the bigger room is the one this tournament has become for her. She is in the same draw as Venus Williams. Still competing at 46 years old, she is in the same draw as Naomi Osaka, a 4-time Grand Slam champion. She is in the same draw as Jessica Pegula and Elena Rybakina and Zheng Qinwen, and she has already knocked out 2 of them. And then immediately after this tournament ends comes the Canadian Open in Montreal, a WTA 1000. Then Cincinnati, another WTA 1000. And then in late August, the US Open in New York, where she made her Grand Slam debut in 2025 with a second-round appearance and where she will now walk in as a top 30 seed for the first time. That is the calendar. That is the room. And every single question about Alex Eala from 12 months ago, can she play at this level? Can she close matches? Can she draw an audience? Can she survive the calendar? Has been answered. And yet, none of this happens without the losses. Because 11 weeks before Washington, Fernandez had beaten her 1-6, 4-6 in Stuttgart, and Eala's clay season ended in the first round of the French Open, losing to Iva Jovic 4-6, 2-6. That was May. 22 days before this Washington quarterfinal, Jasmine Paolini ended her historic Wimbledon run in the round of 16. 4-6, 6-4, 3-6, the deepest a Filipina has ever gone at a Grand Slam in the Open era, ended by a specialist grass court closer. 22 days between that loss and this Washington quarterfinal, on a different continent, on a different surface. That is the recovery timeline of a player who has stopped treating losses as verdicts and started treating them as data. In her own words, spoken to reporters after the Zheng match on July 28th, "I've had more experience now to implement that mindset at the higher level." That is not a champion's cliche. That is a specific technical claim about a specific skill delivered by a player who just backed it up on the court 48 hours later. So let's name the room she is in now, and let's do it plainly, without hype and without wish. She is in a quarterfinal against either Elina Svitolina or Polina Kudermetova. She has already beaten Svitolina this year. She has beaten 7 top 10 players in 5 months. She is ranked number 28 in the world and rising. She is the highest-ranked Filipino in the history of the sport. She is being recruited by tournament chairmen who use the word icon and mean it commercially. When she was 1-5 down in the second set last night, she won 6 of the next 7 games. When Fernandez served for the set at 5-4, she broke her. When the tiebreak arrived, she won it 7-1. 14 weeks after being solved by the same opponent, she solved her back on a bigger stage in a longer match from a losing position. She did not do that in front of an empty arena. She did that in front of a Washington, D.C. crowd that a mainstream American newspaper compared to a Beatles concert, and in front of a tournament chairman who told the Record that 80% of his ticket requests for the entire event were about her. That is the room she is in now, not the room she is trying to reach, the room she is already inside. The quarterfinal is Thursday. Wherever you are watching this from, whether you are in Manila or Cebu or Dubai or Toronto or California or in a Filipino household in Maryland that already has tickets to Rock Creek Park for Thursday, you are watching the moment a Filipina tennis player stopped being an underdog story and became a scheduled main event. Hit subscribe, drop a comment with what you think happens against Svitolina, and stay with this channel, because whatever she does in the next 24 hours and whatever she does at the US Open a month from now, we will be here to walk through it with you, one verified fact at a time.